From the grand halls of the Carlton mansion, I often found myself questioning my place amidst a legacy that seemed to favor my brother, Mark. The journey I embarked on, driven by my desire to be more than just the overlooked daughter of a grand lineage, was fraught with challenges, doubts, and unexpected turns. As I navigated the tumultuous seas of family politics, ambitions, and loyalties, I discovered that my place in this vast tapestry was not determined by birthright, but by the choices I made. While the world was enamored by Mark's golden aura, I carved a path for myself, one that diverged from the well-trodden trails of the Carlton dynasty. It led me to humble beginnings, despite the family's vast wealth, and eventually to the creation of a venture that was solely mine. But as the winds of time shifted, I was once again drawn into the epicenter of the family storm, one that threatened to engulf our legacy. In this tale, you'll find more than just the rise and fall of business empires. It's a deeply personal account of my struggles and triumphs, of bonds tested and mended, and of the painful realization that sometimes the heaviest chains are those that bind family together. Join me as I take you through the corridors of the Carlton mansion, into the heart of a family torn apart by pride and ambition, and my relentless quest to prove my worth. My name is Rachel, and this is my story. The ornate hallways of the Carlton mansion echoed with the hollow sound of my footsteps as I trudged towards my room. I knew those long corridors too well. Every picture frame that adorned the walls, every carpet design, and every flickering chandelier had silently observed me growing up. But it often felt like the mansion itself knew me better than my own parents did. While the Carlton name was one to be reckoned with in high society, no one really knew about me, Rachel Carlton, the older sister, the overlooked daughter. Whenever I entered a room, it was as though a shadow had walked in, never the heiress of the Carlton fortune. I have to make it on my own, I often said to myself, standing in front of the mirror in my room. There, staring back at me, was a young woman with fire in her eyes and determination in her posture. Not the fragile, overshadowed girl everyone assumed me to be. From the age of 16, I worked part-time jobs, despite having a trust fund large enough to buy several houses. I waited tables, babysat, and even took up a short stint at a bookstore. Every dime I earned went into a separate account, untouched by the Carlton name. It was my way of proving that I wasn't just the other Carlton child. I was my own person. On weekends, when I returned from my jobs, the house was always alive with the sounds of laughter and music, but it was never for me. My parents would throw lavish parties, but I was merely a part of the background. It was always about Mark, my younger brother. Mark, with his blonde hair and cherubic smile, was the apple of my parents' eyes. I remember when he was born, the mansion seemed to light up with joy. There were constant celebrations, baby showers, and even the media was abuzz with the birth of the Carlton heir. While I tried not to resent him, I often caught myself looking at Mark, thinking, why him? Why not me? It wasn't his fault, of course. He was just a child, happily oblivious to the dynamics of our dysfunctional family. One evening, as the sun cast long, melancholic shadows in my room, I overheard a conversation between my parents. Their voices were hushed, but the mansion's acoustics betrayed their secrecy. I just don't understand why she insists on working those menial jobs. My mother's voice was laced with frustration. It's just a phase, dear, my father replied calmly. She'll grow out of it. A phase? Is that what they thought? My entire struggle to establish my identity was just a passing whim in their eyes. I had to show them, and the world, that I wasn't defined by the wealth and prestige of the Carlton name. I was Rachel, and I had a voice that deserved to be heard. Determined, I decided to take on a new challenge, something that would push me out of my comfort zone. A project that would define Rachel Carlton, not by her family's wealth, but by her own grit and talent. And while I was yet to figure out what that would be, I was resolute in my decision to make a mark, one that was separate from the golden boy of the Carlton family. But what could that be? The answer didn't come to me immediately. It was during one of my shifts at the bookstore when I stumbled upon an old, dusty book about community service and making a difference. The ideas and stories inside it ignited a spark in me. Maybe, just maybe, I had found my purpose. And as days turned into nights and the pages of the calendar flipped, I found myself immersed in a world far removed from the glitz and glamour of my family's lifestyle. But this new world, though challenging, gave me a sense of purpose and identity that the Carlton mansion never could. As I laid the foundation for my project, little did I know that this journey would not only change my life, but would also challenge the very fabric of the Carlton legacy. And it was just the beginning. Years quickly slipped away as I engrossed myself in my newfound purpose. My project, which initially began as a simple community outreach program, quickly gained momentum and evolved into a full-fledged nonprofit organization. Hopeful Tomorrow focused on education and skill development for underprivileged children, and its success was a clear testament to the countless hours I had poured into it. With each passing day, I felt a pride that was born from hard work and dedication, not from a family legacy. My name began to appear in newspapers, not as Rachel Carlton, the overlooked Carlton daughter, but as Rachel, the founder of Hopeful Tomorrow. It was a distinction that meant the world to me. However, as my star was rising, dark clouds loomed over the Carlton empire. It was a crisp autumn evening when the news broke out. Mark, with his boyish charm and natural charisma, had been handed the reins of the family business. The announcement wasn't surprising. The society columns had been speculating about it for weeks. Yet, the rapid downfall that followed was nothing short of shocking. I remember the morning when I picked up the newspaper, the headlines screaming about the Carlton empire's imminent bankruptcy. Poor decisions, unchecked investments, and allegations of embezzlement surrounded Mark's name. The golden boy of the family had, in a matter of months, squandered a legacy that took generations to build. My parents were devastated. The media was relentless, and their darling son was now the pariah of the business world. As for me, while part of my heart ached to see my family's name tarnished, another part felt vindicated. All those years of being overshadowed, of being the invisible child, had culminated in this moment. But I wasn't one to bask in another's downfall. Harnessing my success and the substantial personal wealth I had amassed over the years, I took a bold step. I started Carlton Revive, Inc., a company aimed at resurrecting the crumbling family business. While many saw it as a foolhardy endeavor, I saw it as a challenge, a chance to not only restore the family name, but also to prove my worth once and for all. It was not easy. The task at hand was Herculean. Days turned into nights, nights into days, as I grappled with debts, angry creditors, and a demoralized workforce. But where Mark had failed, I thrived. My experiences, my failures, my time away from the Carlton shadow had all prepared me for this. During this tumultuous time, Mark and I crossed paths more frequently than we had in our entire lives. Our conversations, once filled with veiled envy and silent resentments, now took on a different tone. "I'm so sorry, Rachel," Mark said one evening, genuine remorse in his eyes. We stood in the now nearly empty Carlton mansion, the tangible signs of the family's decline surrounding us. "You should have never been put in a position to clean up my mess," he continued, voice breaking. "It's not just about cleaning up, Mark. It's about proving that being a Carlton doesn't mean we're entitled. We have to earn our legacy," I replied, my voice firm. As the months passed, Carlton Revive, Inc. started showing signs of turning the tide. Slowly but steadily, the family business was pulled out from the brink of destruction. And as the Carlton name regained its former glory, I realized that I had not only rebuilt a company, but also mended the fractured bonds of a sibling relationship. Mark, humbled by his failures, became my strongest ally, supporting me in every endeavor. Together, we embarked on a journey, not as rivals, but as two siblings united in their goal. And while the world saw the resurrection of the Carlton Empire, I saw a personal victory. The world that had once dismissed me had no choice but to recognize my worth. And in that recognition, I found my redemption. The Carlton Mansion, once echoing with the distant laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses, now wore a cloak of somberness. 2 years had passed since the rise of Carlton Revive Inc., and much had changed. My relationship with Mark had transformed from distant to close-knit, yet the shadow of the past still loomed large. Our mother's birthday was always a grand affair. She had a penchant for luxurious celebrations. And despite the roller coaster of emotions and events the family had experienced, this year was no different. The mansion was abuzz with preparations, floral arrangements, gourmet food, and an orchestra setting up in the grand ballroom. Guests from high society were expected, and every detail had to be perfect. The evening began on a cordial note. Soft conversations, bursts of laughter, and the melodious strains of the orchestra filled the air. Mark and I exchanged pleasantries, reminiscing about childhood memories and shared experiences. The bond felt stronger than ever. Dinner was served in the grand dining hall, a long table adorned with silverware and intricate china. It was during the dessert course, with the golden glow of the chandeliers reflecting off the crystal glassware, that our mother cleared her throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Rachel, darling," she began, her voice sweet, yet with an underlying firmness. "You've done wonders with Carlton Revive. We couldn't be prouder. But I think it's time for Mark to find his footing again. I wish for you to make him a co-owner of your company." The room went silent. I felt every eye on me, gauging my reaction. My heart raced, and a myriad of emotions welled up inside. Surprise, anger, disbelief. "I've rebuilt the company from scratch, Mother," I began, trying to keep my voice calm and measured. "I've poured my blood, sweat, and tears into it. Mark had his chance with the family business, and he lost it." Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face a shade paler. Our father, always the silent observer, watched the scene unfold with an inscrutable expression. "I'm not saying this to undermine your achievements, dear," my mother continued, her tone imploring. "But he's your brother. Family looks out for each other." "And where was this family when I was overlooked and overshadowed?" I asked, my voice rising with emotion. "Where was this concern for family when I was struggling to find my place in the world?" Mark finally spoke. "Rachel, I don't want charity. I don't want a piece of your company out of pity." My mother shot him a sharp look, as if willing him to stay quiet. The tension in the room was palpable, a heavy weight that threatened to crush us all. Taking a deep breath, I finally responded. "I love you, Mark, and I want nothing but the best for you. But Carlton Revive is my creation, my child. I cannot hand it over, even if it's to my own brother." Our mother's face contorted with a mix of anger and disappointment. "If you can't support your family when they need you the most, then perhaps we have nothing more to say to each other." The aftermath of that dinner was as cold as the winter that followed. Phone calls went unanswered, invitations declined, and the once close bond between Mark and me grew distant once more. The family that had weathered storms together was now fractured, torn apart by pride, legacy, and choices. And as I walked the corridors of the mansion that had witnessed my highs and lows, I realized that sometimes the cost of standing up for what you believe in could be the very ties that bind you.